All right, welcome back to the second episode of this season here where we're talking about mental health with Dr. Kofi Bonnie. If you haven't yet seen the first episode, hearing about his story, his background, and kind of what has brought him into the mental health field, we just recommend you go and listen to that. But today we're going to be talking just kind of a general overview about mental health. I know that this is like a whole field, right? So it's going to be nearly impossible to distill it down to one episode, but we want to give you, if you're watching, if you're listening, just kind of a general overview about what mental health is, how to define it, what it looks like, just so that you have kind of a clear pathway forward as you listen to some of these episodes or as you engage, hopefully, in your own healing processes and as you engage with faith as well and spirituality. So we know it's a broad topic, but can you kind of give us a general overview of maybe some of the different categories of mental health? What is mental health? How do you define it?
I was looking at mental health, the definition for mental health before I started, but I don't want to go to the classic definition of mental health. It's not the absence of illness or an absence of a mental disorder. Some have defined it as having the ability to work, to love. Sigmund Freud has his definition. But let me give you a paraphrase. My definition of mental health is harmony between your biological self, your social self, and your psychological self, which includes having your behavior, your effect, and your thoughts aligned with your person, your family, and your community, your ability to contribute to your community, your ability to love and work. That is my definition for mental health. And it's a state. Yeah. It's the state. The terminology that you hear more now is mental well-being, which is more of, it encompasses this and more. It calls for resilience. It calls for being intentional and being forward-thinking. That is this mental. So mental health being a state, mental well-being being more organic and resilience-focused than thinking, not thinking, but ahead of the game, more more holistic. Let me put it that way. It's constantly moving and you are working on it. Very organic,
So, like, instead of being a place, a destination to arrive to, it is a journey of continual growth and prevention.
That's the well-being.
That's the well-being.
That's the well-being.
Okay. Mental well-being. Okay. Yeah. I like that because I won't get into it right now because we can talk about this. I could talk about this forever with like spirituality being the same thing, holiness being the same thing.
Yes, and I like that you are starting with definitions. Yeah. Because the next one we're going to talk about is the religion and spirituality, right? Yes. And also, I was doing some reading, and until recently, most people or most writings had religion and spirituality synonymous. That's religion being that believing in a greater or a higher power. Yeah. And have religion having rules or norms for you to believe in that higher power. So there was structure to religion. Yeah. Spirituality did not have that structure. Okay. So this talks about all these dualism principles and philosophies and defining the mental health is not part of health. By the way, you cannot separate your mental health from your physical health. You have to have mental well-being or mental health to have a holistic well-being.
They're intrinsically tied.
They're intrinsically tied.
Okay.
Those years of talking about your mental health defined, we all know it is debunked. You cannot. Your physical health impacts your mental health impacts your physical. There's so many studies that I can refer you to. I have experienced it. I talked about my nail.
Yes, yeah.
that period, I would say I went through a very depressive period. I could not play. I could not do anything.
Yeah.
Darkness for me.
Yeah.
Anxiety for me. So when we talk about, you cannot separate your mental health from your physical. Anybody who does talks about it separates. And our healthcare system sometimes, in most places, still have that
The distinction.
Hence, we are not getting better outcomes.
Yeah. Yes, it's one of the challenges, because I know we had Dr. Gabor Mate
Yes,
come
a good friend.
last time, right?
Yeah.
Good friend of yours,
Yeah.
right? Which, thank you, by the way, for getting us connected so we can bring him in. But I know he does talk about, when the body says no, right?
Yes.
And then there's other book, the body keeps score, about this idea that a lot of clinicians will often try to treat a physical symptom of it, but in reality, there's a much deeper well there. There's a mental health issue, or vice versa. That sometimes the physical well-being can affect your mental health, like you're saying, but the mental states can manifest into autoimmune diseases or
Correct.
Different illnesses that we have, like even cancers and stuff like
Correct.
that. Right?
I would say if you have good mental health, very likely you will have good physical health. And if you look at even therapeutic modalities that give preventative good physical health, they are the same thing that gives good mental health. Sleep, exercise, good nutrition. They all give the same. If I'm talking about, it's the same.
Yeah.
And you made a reference to something that I want to actually address really quickly. B.M. Hagdi talks about what we don't teach in medical schools. Spirituality is one. Most medical schools do not teach spirituality.
Yeah.
It is just recently that Duke University has set up a Center for Spirituality, Religion, and Mental Health. And it's headed by Dr. Harold Cohen, who's done extensive work for the last 40 years on this subject. There are two other professors, one, Dr. Wheeler. They are both Van Wheeler or something. Both of them are in Harvard. They are part of these three people have written the handbook of, I think it's religion and health.
Yeah.
Where they have over 1,500 studies.
Wow.
On this subject.
Yeah.
Most of these studies are scientific studies.
Yeah.
We're looking at, they have the scientific rigor.
Yeah.
Very objective, measurable outcomes.
Yes.
And the conclusion from this book suggests if you are religious and you are spiritual, your health outcomes are way better than that. So let me pack that as we continue.
Yeah. Because that is a fascinating result, right? We could talk about this. I know this is a passion of ours, so I don't want to jump ahead because I know we'll talk about it in a future episode. But so one of the things I know, like you said, obviously we cannot separate the mental health and the physical health, right? That they are both tied together and they will influence each other. It's not just one way where if you have poor physical health, you'll be affected, mentally. But if you have poor mental health, it also results in poor physical health, right? Are there other perhaps misconceptions or I'm missing the word now. Misconceptions,
bias,
or
stigma.
Yeah. No. It's not bias. Misconceptions might be the best word. It'll come to me later as we're talking.
Okay,
I know the word will come up to me. But are there other misconceptions about mental health that are kind of prevalent that maybe we don't know are misconceptions?
A lot. And I put all in one basket. That's why I said stigma, biases, misconceptions.
Okay, yeah.
These are all false and not based in truth of what mental health is. The notion that if you pray enough or you don't pray enough, you have or you not have mental health. That every mental health is demonic possession. What are some of these? Everybody who has mental health is violent. If you will, you can will yourself to good health. That it is contagious.
Yeah.
There are families that will not even. There are people who will not sit by somebody with obvious mental presentation because they feel it is contagious. Like COVID is contagious. If they breathe and you breathe the air, there are people who not even visit people in mental health hospital because they feel they can catch mental illness by
Yeah.
hanging out to somebody with
Yeah.
mental health. There's a whole lot. There's a whole lot. Actually, I think it was Bill Clinton who said that either Bill Clinton or Thomas Insel, who is the former head of National Institute of Mental Health, that if we address our biases and our stigma, 50% we will improve outcomes by 50%, or
Wow.
50% of people with mental health will have better outcomes if we just address our misconceptions, stigma, and biases for mental health.
Yeah. Because I think one of the things that I remember, this was back in, for me, it was Kelowna, when I was pastoring there, and I visited someone in the psychiatric ward because they had a slew of things, but they had an episode, and I remember this was like prior to, I think, some enlightenment for me and some education for me, and like I did feel like nervous. Like it's not like I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna catch it, but it did feel like it felt scary, to walk into that space and to have like a conversation with that person. And I think for me that was one of the eye openers experiences in my ministry, was having a conversation one-on-one with that person, having to minister to and getting to minister to them, right, on a spiritual and personal level, to someone that was clearly going through something that was very difficult and that had caused quite a bit of uproar within their family, because I don't know the extent and the specifics of what their mental health issues were, but like it was a very public, visible, like outbursts that they had, and brought a lot of shame and embarrassment to the family. And so ministering in that scenario. But I see some of those things that, like you mentioned, right, which was like if they had just prayed hard enough, right?
Yes.
Maybe there wasn't any faith in God enough,
Yes.
right? Like, is this a demon possession,
Yep.
right? Those are some of the things that we can often overemphasize, or really like, because what you're not saying, that prayer isn't important.
Correct.
Right? You're not saying that God doesn't play a role in our health. You're not
Correct.
saying that there aren't instances of demon possession.
Correct.
But you're saying that we cannot paint with a broad brush.
Yes.
When it comes to mental health and mental
Yes.
well-being.
Yes.
Right.
We have limited understanding of mental health. We have very limited understanding of mental health. And it is not a popular subject.
Yeah.
It is not something that it's I think now this generation actually are more vocal about mental health.
Yes.
And mental well-being, and they will speak about it, that, hey, I'm not doing well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it has always been that subject that is kept in the closet, that we have not explored even as a church. I do remember growing up. I grew up in a church. We have temperance programs.
Yeah.
Usually our temperance programs is focused on what we eat.
Yeah.
But I heard this from one of the philosophers that I like so much, that it is not only what we eat
Yep.
that kills us. It is what eats us.
Say that again, because I think someone needs to hear that
It
again.
is not only what we eat that
Yes.
kills us. It is what eats us.
Wow.
So think about what eats us.
Yes.
The anger,
Yes.
the gossiping, the rage,
Yeah.
the lack of self-worth, the disgrace, the shame, the
Yeah.
guilt.
Yeah.
Those are the things that eat us. And if you spend time with people who have got some chronic conditions, it's the trauma, the bullying,
Yeah.
the unconducive family environment, unconducive working environment, unconducive schooling environment.
Yeah.
That's killing us. It's making people's anxiety go up the roof. People are getting more panic attacks, more respiratory depression. Immune system is down, having susceptible to more infectious diseases, increased risks of cancers, increased risks of... Actually, there is a case that is sensitive. But I would like to try and talk about it.
Mm.
Because there was a church leader,
Uh-huh.
that got very sick, that I got to know, that later shared about a trauma that that person inherited and that the person could not process. And as the person was talking about it, it hit me that this person is sick because of trauma-induced cancer.
Wow.
That person passed on.
Wow.
But that has been one of those pivotal moments that I felt I wish I had spoken about the work I do and what the correlation that I have found earlier on in my career. That I don't know, I think I was too, not really scared, but I don't think, I felt people don't want to know about it, so I will not talk about it.
Yeah. So this is interesting because I think a lot of people might kind of really be curious after what you just said, right? It's a trauma-induced cancer,
Yeah.
right? Maybe tell me a little bit more about, like, how does that take place? Even if you can't get into the mechanics of it, 'cause it's probably a broad topic.
I'll
But
keep it simple.
yeah, tell me a little bit more about that, because I think a lot of people will find interesting. Many people will just think cancer comes from like radio waves or microwaves or food or you know
Environmental
or
factors.
genetic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
So all those things are true. All those
yeah,
things, like any disorders, or there is the biopsychosocial model
yeah,
that impacts illness or disorders.
yeah,
So yes, genetics is one. It can be passed on through the gene. Trauma is also passed on through the gene in epigenetics. So that is one.
yeah. And
Your-
we're going to talk about epigenetics in the next
Yes.
one. Yeah,
Environment plays a role.
yeah,
Where you live, your level of education, access to school, access to hospital, access to healthcare, access to good food, access to clean environment, access to fresh air, all has impact on you even getting developing mental disorders. If you live in an environment where there's always sirens and shooting, you're always triggered
Yeah.
or activated.
yeah, yeah,
You increase the risk of you getting depression and anxiety attack. So now if you hear a door slam, it
Yeah.
startles you. You don't want to see the lights go out.
yeah,
These are all things that can trigger into something. So if you are already inherited a gene from your parents, makes you more susceptible to mental illness. It pushes you over the ledge,
Yeah.
so to speak. So the whole action of trauma induced is based on the concept that has been talked about, our fear response system, right? That we have a system in our body that helps regulate, that keeps us safe, right? When we trigger this system, the hypopituitary axis, when we trigger this system, it causes the body to react in a certain way
yeah,
for our defense mechanism and for our survival. So I think the common story that has been shared, or you have TED Talks about it, is, let's say a bear or so, a lion comes here, you get triggered, the hypopituitary axis get triggered, those hormones, stress hormones, cortisol, and others are secreted. You get to fight, freeze, or what?
flight.
Response. All these things are triggered. These hormones must go somewhere afterwards, right? The body must process it. Some theories suggest that when these hormones are secreted and it triggers the body, it causes inflammation if it stays.
If it's not dealt with.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's not
okay.
dealt with. That is one of the theories that have been given. The other theories is, if you keep switching this system on and off, like typical old switches, nowadays
Yeah.
you don't get it. But if you had those old bulbs, not LED,
Yeah.
and you keep switching on and off and on and off, it gets to a point the light goes out, the filament goes out.
Yeah, you burn it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you keep it malfunctions, so it's now when you need it and when it malfunctions, your immune system is compromised.
Yeah.
That is the theory behind what stress and trauma can cause too. And what causes stress and what causes trauma? A lot of things can cause stress. It depends. What may cause stress today may not cause you stress tomorrow. And a situation that may not cause you stress may cause stress tomorrow. Stress is all around us. You need it to survive. Your body, you need a little bit of stress to have, but over a certain level, it becomes toxic and harmful to your health.
Yeah. Because not all stress is bad stress.
Not all stress is bad. You need a little bit of stress.
Yeah.
I knew I was coming here. I have to be here on time.
Yeah.
It caused a little bit of stress for me to get here early.
Yeah.
But it's not good stress. It saves us time.
Yes.
We are respectful for each other's time so we can get home on time and spend quality time with our family.
Yeah.
But it becomes toxic when you live in that constant stress with your body producing stress hormone.
Yeah.
Adrenaline and cortisol.
So whether it's prolonged sustained stress over a long period of time,
Yes.
or the prolonged sustained over repeated instances of like frequently,
It's all not healthy.
it's all unhealthy.
All unhealthy.
Wow.
Yes. And it causes not just physical illness, it also causes mental
Yeah.
situation. And if you add, so I've talked about the genetics, the biofactors.
Yeah.
I've talked about the environmental factors. And I've also spoke about the psychological factors.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I'll say is this. Your mind is the most powerful concept. So mind is not an organ. The brain is an organ.
Yeah.
The mind is the concept.
Okay. Yeah.
Is the most powerful thing you have. You know, every part of your body, every organ in your body you can get some form of machine to work for you. Not your
mind.
brain and your mind.
Yeah.
Your brain is not an easy thing. When it's switched off, that's it. You can donate all your organs.
So there's this power to the mind.
Yes.
That can literally shape our physical and our mental reality.
Yes.
Right. And so that's where, like, a very quick example that people might be familiar with might be like placebos, right? Like the placebo effect.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Where like you have typically like a sugar pill that doesn't have any actual medication, but you are told that it will help you and that people have literally experienced the physical symptoms of relief.
There's a whole lot of studies on that. So
Yeah.
they give people sugar water or water and they tell them that's the most powerful pain medication, and they take it and they're like, this is so good, only to realize that it is water.
Yeah.
There is also a study that WHO, I think, did in 5 countries where they compared various therapeutic modalities, quackery, Western medicine, Western and I think Chinese medicine. I think it was they did this study in Taiwan, and they found out that you could not tell the difference. You could not tell the difference.
Really?
Because when you have faith and you have you believe that if I take this potion, it will work. That is why people still go to all sorts of places for healing.
Yeah.
And they get the healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's that mind believing.
It is the
firmly.
mind. The mind. The mind is powerful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was listening to Atomic Habits this morning.
Yes.
And he was talking about
years
that.
ago. I had
Yeah, where he's talking about how, part of changing your habits includes changing your system, right? Where if you constantly repeat to yourself that, so this is something that I know, it's so funny that he used the specific example. He said, if you constantly tell yourself you're bad at remembering names, you'll be bad at remembering names.
Yes.
And I realized I actually tell myself that all the time. And that's why I constantly forgetting names. And so even just this morning, I was thinking to myself, okay, I need to stop telling myself I'm bad at remembering names. I need to find a different mantra. I haven't found it yet, but I need to find a different mantra that will reinforce a new reality, a new mind shift for me that can shape the way that I respond or the way that I actually relate to the world around me.
Yeah.
All right. So this mind thing is...
The mind is powerful. If you look at Angela Duckworth's work on... I think he works on what makes people successful, and he's a psychologist. And it's not how smart you are.
Okay.
It is your perseverance. It's your hard work. It's the mind putting. It's the positive energy that you put in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mind is powerful. And if you go through scripture, I can give you several examples
Yeah.
of let's look at Saul, King Saul.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one I'm familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
and his mind games and how he fed his mind. I used to preach a sermon. Actually, there's a sermon I preached years ago looking at two Benjamins, the story of two Benjamites. Saul in the Old Testament, how he fed his mind, and the Saul in the New Testament. Both Benjamites, how he also grew up, taught by Gamaliel. Paul was a the latter Saul became Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very smart man,
Yes.
taught by Gamaliel, right?
Yeah.
He could write letters, and the chief justice, the chief priest said, like, go ahead, go do that. He
Yeah.
was connected
Yeah.
till he met Christ,
Yeah.
and he gave his mind to Christ.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, he's written more New Testament books than anybody else.
Yeah.
Converted a lot of souls, beaten, flogged. You couldn't even feel the pain.
Yeah.
Because there was a greater person controlling his mind.
Yes.
If we don't get anything out of this, I say this. Whoever has your mind has you. When I hear about the great controversy, this is what I think about.
Yeah.
It is the control for your mind. Whoever has your mind has you. Because out of your mind comes your actions and your behavior.
Yeah.
Out of your mind is where your thoughts are controlled. So if we think about, I normally make this analogy, when there is an offense, a justice system, and they are charging you. They charge you for the crime you've done and for thinking about the crime you did before you did it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
They charge you for that.
Yeah.
So if you did not intentionally kill,
Yeah.
you have it less. If you thought about it and executed it,
Yes.
that's another crime on its own.
Yeah, because that's the difference between manslaughter, first degree, and second degree. Is the mens rea,
Yes.
actus rea.
Yes.
Right.
So the thoughts, the mind behind it.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah, because that's what Paul says, right? He says, "Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but constantly transformed by the renewing of the mind."
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And then when we think about this reality of the mind shaping, and then faith too, right? I know we've talked a little bit about some of the stigmas or misconceptions that religious communities can have on mental health and mental well-being. What would be maybe your advice or maybe your counsel for religious communities? Like how can we as a religious community destigmatize that process, like remove the stigma of mental health?
I'll start by saying that the battle for the mind is real. The devil is moving around like a roaring lion, seeking who he may devour. I don't remember the last time I saw him actually eating somebody alive.
Yeah.
But I know he's been able to eat a lot of people, spiritual minds. Because if he's hack your mind, he can cause you to do things that will make you not feel you are even worthy to come before our loving, graceful God.
Yeah.
So as a religious community, we must keep that in mind. One, that the devil is looking for subtle ways, covert ways to get our mind. The next thing I would like us to also think about this is mental illness is real. It is not the lack of faith that causes mental health issues. It is not praying enough or not being loved by God or not giving yourself to God. That there are people who have baptized, dedicated themselves to God, but still get attacked by mental illness.
Yeah.
Because we live in a sinful world.
Yes.
Because we live in a sinful world, mental illness will always be with us.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be more accepting and help people go through that journey. You know, when somebody breaks their leg, it's so easy for everybody to send flowers, write on the cast, and but if somebody to come to this, I feel like killing myself. Oh, that's
Yeah.
weird. We don't know what to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way we talk about mental health, when we talk about the way we talk about health, we should talk about mental health too.
Mm.
Let's teach our kids what mental health is, what mental wellness is.
Mm.
Let's not just teach ourselves. Let's have continued conversations about mental health.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's the lack of knowledge. What does it say? The lack of knowledge, my people perish.
Mm-hmm.
It's the lack of knowledge that is causing us to treat mental health as something that is not.
Mm.
So know the devil is real, know that mental illness is real, and there is no difference between mental illness and physical illness.
Yeah.
And then as we move on, we can also, as we educate ourselves, we know that if mental illness is real, then and mental health is like any other health conditions, then it is treatable. Then the very things that you do for cancer patients and autoimmune patients, you can also do it for a behavioral health patient. Community makes a huge role
Yes.
in our healing process.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, people with faith, people with spirituality have better health outcomes. We can do well with mental health. Our settings, our church community can be that support that somebody needs to get well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I plan talking about it. I came to this field partly by my background, and when I got to university in an acute psychiatric unit, I was so surprised to see most people in their psychotic processes. So psychosis is lack of relative.
Yeah.
Most people, when they're experiencing psychosis, people who don't even believe in God or have nothing to do with God will have will start talking about God and the devil. That was what drew my attention to start exploring this field really well.
Yeah.
So my first research study that I looked at was race, religion, and mental health. Tons of information. I think one of the things I wanted to know is what can I do as a budding healthcare provider coming up? What can I do to support this population?
Yeah.
And the more I read, the more I realized that, hey, there is a lot of opportunities for the church that we can do. We started with a talk with Dr. Mate, and it was a huge thing. Having those, because the more we dialogue, the more we learn.
Yep.
The more we get information, the more we are able to live, but the more we are able to be vulnerable, the more we are able to even get a better understanding to improve health outcomes. So mental health is real. The church can be that healing community that helps individuals, families, and the greater community to get well. And we can do it. We can prevent mental health problems, we can promote mental wellness, and we can treat mental illness.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's powerful because I think even just understanding that concept that, again, like we said, physical health, mental health tied, but all of it.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things that I just kind of going to our specific faith community, which is Seventh-day Adventist and Adventist. One of the things that I've loved so much about our religious beliefs and our theology is that we hold very firmly to the idea that we are whole beings.
Yep.
That you cannot fracture us into or compartmentalize into pieces of beings, like whether, we're sexual beings or physical beings or mental beings or spiritual or whatever, that God has created us to be these whole beings, and that all of it is intertwined.
Yep.
So that when we do believe in, because one of the things that's big in Adventism is like healthy lifestyle and healthy eating and stuff, because it's tied into our spirituality. And then I think one of the things that we often lack in just Christian communities in general is like healthy sexuality
Yes.
and healthy mental health, right? Mental well-being, where we've kind of ignored some of those things. And, we've treated as sex as dirty, and we've treated mental health as, it's just a faith issue. And as you're talking about this, I think I'm realizing that one of the things the devil definitely does in dividing us and bringing us down is tricking us into treating one portion with the wrong medicine. So whether it's, things that are genuine mental health concerns, and then just saying, well, just apply faith to it. And faith it's not wrong.
It's not wrong
To have faith. It's not wrong to pray for that and to increase your prayer life. But part of the devil's tactic can be the wrong tools,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
For the job.
Yes.
And that might mean only relying on certain faith aspects for mental health, but the opposite is true too,
Yes.
right? Where you're only relying on mental health for things that also need a faith component.
Yes. And I'd like to also add, I'd like the way you put it, getting the right tools for the right job.
Yeah.
And it's God that has granted us wisdom in the
Yes.
medical field to help. And so there are times that the question that normally comes to me from people for people of faith is, is it mental health or is it a faith issue?
Yeah.
And I tell them it's both.
Yeah.
Don't stop praying.
Yes.
If you have a broken leg, will you stop praying? You continue to pray and seek medical help.
Yeah.
So seek medical help, but also continue to pray.
Yeah.
So there's room. There's been several instances that I've had this, where a church member feel this is a medical issue, or this is a spiritual issue. And as we explore, we realize there was a medical issue also to it that we have not addressed. So hormones play a role. Overstimulation of the pituitary glands or the thyroid can cause behavioral health problems.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who is in a certain age range and they take certain medications that they are not taking well, can trigger. So medications can also trigger mental illness. So there's a whole lot of life, let me put it, all aspects of life that can trigger mental illness. Events can trigger mental events. I'm talking about post-traumatic events. Can trigger mental illness.
Yeah.
Accidents can trigger mental illness. Having infection can trigger mental health illness. Side effects of medications can trigger mental illness. You get hit with a head trauma can trigger some form of mental illness. So it's not easy to say this is spiritual or this is. I believe we should have a holistic approach to it. And I know at some point in time I started looking at Ellen White's writings. And for those who are not Adventists, Ellen White, for the Adventist faith, has written extensively, and we believe she's a prophet. And some of her writings, actually, although she does not label it the way I would have labeled it, was talking about the same concept. Her concept about home, her concept about community, her concept about sharing, her concept about being there for the vulnerable, are all things that if we are to implement, will create that therapeutic community that everybody needs to do well, to thrive in our health.
It's unfair to oversimplify mental health issues, because you're saying it's caused by so many different factors.
Yes.
That it's unfair to simplify it to a simple, and I don't mean simple as in like small, but like a simple faith issue where it's like, it's just enough to pray. It's just enough to read the Bible.
Correct.
Like there's so many complex things at play here, right? That if we truly want to experience holistic health, we need a holistic approach.
We do need a holistic approach
to our health.
Yes, to our health.
Right. And perhaps that's why like you said previously, that perhaps that's why spirituality and mental health were so intertwined
Yeah.
in the past, because the
Yes.
church was the thing that brought community. The church was the thing that elevated the poor, that brought education, that brought relief to impoverished areas, that brought development and aid,
Yep.
and all of that played a role in increasing the whole well-being of an individual that could reduce mental health issues.
Correct. And if
Right.
you look at the history of mental health and how we have treated mental health, you see that the church played a significant role in mental health treatment.
Yeah.
Well, the church used to be the everything in the
Yeah.
community.
Yep.
Like the church was it for the community. So when if you look at the establishment of I'm getting the words sanatoriums and places of care for people who are sick, the church played a significant role. I think this issue of the church's role in exorcism, where the priest will tie people or beat people to take the demons out of people, and in historical drawings it shows all those things. It's still stuck with people. It's still stuck with people.
Yes.
But moving forward, we've been able to move on
Yeah.
with other areas of medicine,
Yeah.
but we still seem stuck in mental health. So we researched, let's take it leprosy. We researched and realized it was caused by a bacteria and it's curable. So now, when was the last time you heard of anybody die of leprosy? Whereas early detection, you give antibiotics, the person will survive. But when it comes to behavioral health, when it comes to mental health, we have not been able to easily turn the dial because it's somehow very difficult to also quantify. It's not
Yeah.
easy to quantify.
Yeah.
It's not easy to quantify trauma. Seeing somebody killed and seeing an animal being killed or witnessing in person, depending on somebody, depending on a person, you cannot, how do you quantify it on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10?
Yeah.
Somebody may hear the story and may be traumatized more than the person who actually
Experienced
witnessed.
Yeah.
So when it becomes very difficult to quantify, it becomes very difficult to research. And when
Yes.
people don't have words to describe something, they tend to label it in very obscure ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know that we've talked about in the past, like you and I, about the divide between science and faith, right? And how there's been this very distinct demarcation where, okay, well, science and faith are incompatible. It seems like the world is trying to pit them against each other. And you have like science that will often ridicule faith for their scientific practices. Like I just think of like one of the practices back in the medieval ages for like dealing with psychosis or dealing with like maybe what we would call schizophrenia or something was like drilling holes in someone's head,
Yeah.
right, to release the spirits or
Yes,
the demons.
spirits
And it's
come.
not to like downplay the seriousness of that situation, but there are, I think, in all of life, people are just doing the best that they can with the knowledge that they can.
Yes.
And as we develop further in our understanding of how our mental health works, that we don't need to separate those two things, faith and mental health, but rather we should rejoin them.
Yes.
Right? And be very intentional about making sure that, no, we're not on these two distinct tracks, but rather that they ride together because they are entirely
Right.
related.
Yeah, the history of science, the history of science for about 600 years, Galen, they believed that it was the liver that pumped blood. For centuries.
Well,
Centuries.
Yeah.
Before they realized it was the heart that pumped blood. So science have not always had it together. It
Yeah.
took 50 years for science to realize that smoking causes cancer.
yeah.
Before it now, you are not allowed to smoke in public places. We have to gather the objective data.
Yeah.
Are we going to wait for another 100 years to realize that our faith community plays a role because you want to see a randomized control trial that will give you clear, objective data on faith and its implication? There are studies out there. There are studies out there. Do you know what they measure as an objective way? Most of these studies are looking at the church attendance
Okay.
and the number of times you pray, and how it correlates to your health outcomes. And church attendance, that is objective.
Yeah.
Church attendance, if you attend church regularly, your health outcomes are better. That is what the research says.
Huh.
And if you look at if for a Christian,
Yeah.
if you look at the big scope of things, church attendance is not. Will you rank church attendance as? Exactly.
No, probably not.
Exactly. But they needed to get something that is objective and measurable.
Yeah, yeah,
Science hasn't got the tools to measure faith
Yes.
and religion and spirituality.
yeah.
And as they don't have the tools, they think, oh, because I don't have the tools to measure what you are bringing to the table, I cannot consider you.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a huge need for us to continue to having this dialogue and look at how to improve outcomes for.
Yeah, because like I like that to bring it to the table, right? We lose something when we're not all at the table together.
Yes.
Right? Science loses something when they're discounting faith, but
Correct.
the inverse is true. Faith loses something when it discounts science.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because it helps us describe. Science helps us describe.
Yeah.
That is me. Science helps us describe. It help us to think about ways to improve certain things. They help us get better processes in place and stuff like. Yes, they have the evidence to help us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, for someone like the average person that comes to church, right? What would you? So let me back up for a second, because there are things that we can do, as a system, church, to better equip our body, our community to deal with mental health. Like you said, having these conversations, right? Destigmatizing it, understanding some of the roots and the causes, that it's more complex than just as simple as praying, or more complex than just as simple as popping a pill. Like it's multifaceted, right? So then for the average person that comes into church, like what can I do? What can I as a church attendee do to maybe create that safe environment for people to experience it?
Exactly. There's a lot we can do. One of the things when I was in school, we spent a lot of time, any counselor or psychotherapist or somebody that provides talking therapy would tell you this. They spend a lot of time learning how to bring empathy. It's the non-verbal empathy and also the verbal empathy. So you learn how to make empathetic statements. I used to teach therapeutic relations. And you learn how to make therapeutic response, how to do active listening.
Yeah.
These are all tools that every church member can get to. You don't have to. For some people, it comes to them naturally.
Yeah.
It's the breathe hello. It's the
Yeah.
hi. It's the listening ear. How are you doing? How are you really doing?
Yes.
Sometimes by talking about your problems, you find solution to your problems.
Yeah.
Yes, that is one. So being an ear for somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
There are a lot. What else? Sometimes people do not want to seek medical help. But having affirmation from a fellow church member saying, you know what, I think you should go to the hospital and check this out. Because when you go to the hospital, they run some tests and they realize, oh, you are deficient in this hormone, they are deficient in this, or you've done this. There are things going on that you are not aware of. A case in point is a church member who was not even taking her medication right and was experiencing some mental health symptoms.
Yeah.
That she thought it was demon possession.
Wow.
But when she went to hospital, they ran the test, they realized that her pill bottle at home had switched around and she was taking more tablets of something that she was not supposed to. So she was now toxic.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So we can be that community that helps somebody to seek help, drive that person to go and seek help, visit that person. They say this, any therapist will tell you this. If you can practice empathy, your work is done. As a therapist, learning to be empathetic, your work is done. There's a lot of... Okay, you go.
Yeah. Because I define empathy, because I think those are very common words that we're starting to use right now. Sympathy and empathy, right?
Yes.
So help us define what empathy
sympathy is I pity you.
Okay.
I'm being very blunt here.
Yeah.
I pity you. Oh, I'm so sorry for you. Empathy is I'm putting myself in your shoes. I cannot even imagine what you are going through. I cannot even imagine. I cannot, I don't have the words to comfort you. Allowing somebody to pour themselves out.
Yeah.
As I say, sometimes they pour themselves fine. Being there, knowing that you have support. You know, people, it's just like a kid who will throw himself out of a building because his dad is there to catch him. That is what the faith community does. We guide you.
Yeah.
Could you imagine going to surgery, knowing that the prayer team is praying for you,
Yeah, the confidence.
that the whole church is praying
the
for you?
faith. Yeah.
That is the confidence. Your immune system responds to it.
Wow.
Your music, we know, is very therapeutic. Read the Bible. Talk about King Saul.
Yeah.
When he was in anguish, when his head could not settle, what did he have? Music.
Yeah,
It's
David
one of
playing.
the most. We know what happened. We talk about Lucifer, the ability to use music. I know people who have done things that they are not supposed to do because they were listening to music that they were not. I work with kids in adolescent psychiatry who could not sleep because they listened to hard rock before they go to bed. If you change the music that you're listening to, it puts you straight to bed. Sounds. The kids go to Sabbath school, they learn how to sing, they jump around. All those things, the church community, the act of being church is therapeutic. Being with people is therapeutic.
Yeah. So
that I can give so many avenues that
Yeah.
the church can be therapeutic.
yeah. I know you mentioned like having empathetic statements.
Yes.
Like what would be an example of that, like of an empathetic statement?
Let me give you an example of empathetic statement would be, guess what? This week again. Last week I lost my keys. This week again, my kid went to school and was asked to go home. That must be very devastating. Can you tell me more of how you are feeling? I can't even imagine what you are going through. You are putting yourself to what the person is going through.
Yeah, not minimizing it.
You are not minimizing it.
Yeah.
You are acknowledging it.
Yes.
And allowing the person to talk some more.
Yeah. Yeah, that phrase, tell me more.
Tell me more
Is a
about
powerful-
what you're going through. Yes.
Powerful phrase. Yeah, because
Before you move on to solutions.
Yes.
Sometimes the last thing people want to hear about is solutions.
Yes.
Especially when they are going through.
Yeah.
Be there.
And so then I think part of what you're saying too is if the person asks for solutions,
Yes.
you
You'll
can,
get there.
right?
You can.
But don't assume that
Yes.
they need you to solve their problem,
Yes.
right?
The solutions will get there with
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah.
The solutions will get there. You know, we were talking, before off screen. We were
Yeah.
talking. And I told you that there are times that I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And you give me the permission to go forward.
Yeah.
I've waited for years for that.
Yeah.
You gave me the permission.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is what I'm referring to.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's referring, I told Kofi, I said, Kofi, you have a blank check to speak into my life, to call me out and to call me. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think, because there definitely is, I notice, especially here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
I know that I've talked about it with some people that come from like the Midwest or like down south, the areas that are maybe more community based than they are individualistic. And I think in the Pacific Northwest, we want to be so polite that we fail to actually be involved and be, I would even dare say, interested enough in someone's life to allow the space for us to speak into each other.
Yeah.
Right? Because often when we come to church, we say, hey, how are you doing? And if they say anything other than fine, then we're thrown off, right?
I do sometimes joke with people. Like, if you ask me how am I doing, I ask you, do you have time?
Yeah.
You say, no. If you before you ask me how am I doing, just make sure you take a seat. because I have to say no, 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 no,
I
no.
don't have
Most
time.
people are asking for, they want one word monosyllabic response.
Yeah.
I'm fine, good, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They don't want anything more. But there's a lot as a church community.
Yeah.
I talked about loneliness in our previous presentation. Our world is so lonely. There are a lot of people who are coming to church that are so lonely. Whether it's through the acts of kindness, whether it's through prayer ministry, whether it's through Thrive class, small groups, all these things are opportunity for us to engage. We are social beings.
Yes.
We are spiritual beings. We are social beings.
Yeah.
So historically, if you look at how humanity was, when we were hunter-gatherers, we lived in small communities, maybe 150 to 300 group at a time. Do you know how they punished people? If you do something in the community that they ostracized you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They ostracized. Then came industrialization.
Yeah.
And we start thinking about, everybody started thinking me, 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 me.
Yes.
And now it's even worse.
Yeah.
It's now even worse. Now, in our prison system, if you are naughty in prison, I worked in the prison, forensics.
Yeah.
Do you know how they punish you?
Yeah. Solitary confinement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
And we have brought it from the prison to our homes.
Wow.
We build huge houses, nobody living in it.
Yeah.
And we hang in there.
Yes.
We go for activity, 1 hour, we withdraw, we go and stay in there.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm a lonely person, I reserve my space. And the worst thing is these phones.
Yeah.
It has enabled, it has on it. I sometimes hear the older folks that tells us this thing is a demon.
Yeah.
It has enabled us. Now kids don't want to talk to anybody. They just bend their heads down. They are on this thing for hours.
Yeah.
For hours.
Yeah.
So you see how, and if you are alone, you tell me this. If you're alone versus you're a group of 5 people, which of you will be much easy for somebody to attack and capture?
Oh, by yourself.
Check the animal kingdoms.
Yeah.
They always herd together.
Yeah.
Even lions
Yeah.
have a pack.
That's what Proverbs says, right? It
Yes.
says a cord is easily broken, but a cord of 3
Exactly.
strands,
Exactly.
right, stands
So
stronger.
if we have to check on each other.
Yes.
How lovely will it be if I don't see you at church 1 week, 2 weeks, I call you, give you a call. Hey, I've not seen you in 2 weeks. How is everything going? I'm not saying I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Our lifestyle, our modern lifestyle has made us so busy
Yes.
that we don't have any mental wellness. We don't get time to check on anybody. We don't get time to fellowship.
Yeah. It's really cyclical. Like it's a catch-22 where
Yes.
the more we isolate ourselves, the more we get forced to find meaning and purpose and fulfillment
Yes.
and other things.
Yes.
Like our careers, like
Yes.
our hobbies, like TV, like
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
And then it just kind of perpetuates that again where we get stuck back into an isolated cycle.
We have more, but we are still not happy.
Yeah.
If you look at North America, we're still a lot of people take sleeping medication to sleep. A couple of years ago, I was working on a project and went to Ghana. I was in the market. It was hot, about 30 degrees Celsius. I saw people sleeping in the shed, and I was like, what? Dusty and asleep?
Yeah.
I was like, what? What are these people taking?
Yeah.
I realized they have community. I work in a hospital. More than about 80% need some form of melatonin, tryptophan, tryptophan, whether it's gabapentin, zopiclone, some form of medication. Others are using alcohol. So there's a whole new category of, they call disease of despair. I think now it's anticipated about 170 or some people die every minute or day from the disease of despair. And these are the 3 diseases: death by suicide, death by overdose, and death by alcoholism, hepatitis
Liver
of the
disease,
liver. Yeah. Huge numbers. It is anticipated every year 250,000 people die in the United States because of disease of despair. every year.
Wow. Wow. So I think to kind of close us off, to give us some practical tips as a community.
Yes.
I don't want to get too deep into it because I know we're going to explore some more, but a great phrase, tell me more, right? Like,
Yes.
it's like if you're talking to someone and, they're maybe complaining or venting or sharing, right? Whatever their experience has been, like having those empathetic statements to
Yes.
relate to the emotion that they're going through, not minimizing it, and then inviting them to speak more.
Yes.
Perhaps maybe I'm kind of putting you on the spot. Are there some other phrases that we can kind of write down, keep in our back pocket as we greet others in church, as we kind of engage, maybe to try to break away from that surface level? I want a one, like you said, like a one syllable
Yeah, I'll say
response.
you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone.
Mm.
You're not alone. Know that you're loved.
Mm. That's a good one.
Know that you're loved. Know that you're loved. And we are there with you.
Yeah.
We are there with you. Um, we are not giving up.
Mm.
We are not giving up on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you see, most of these statements is encompassing,
Yes.
bringing people in.
Yeah.
Bringing people in. There are so many, you know, let me quickly talk about this. There's several modalities to treat mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say this. There are times you need professional help.
Yes, for sure.
So we are supposed to support each other and direct people to professional help. There are counselors in the church. There are people who can help you.
Mm-hmm.
Seek professional help. Sometimes you know what? When your mind is active, it's so difficult to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people don't know this.
Yeah.
When you are struggling to think, you cannot easily navigate.
Yeah.
So being there and helping people navigate is very helpful. Prevention, there are things that we can do to prevent mental illness as a community.
Yeah.
We have gym, we have volleyball, we have staff. Encourage each other.
Mm.
Exercise prevents. It's a preventative method. Eating healthy prevent. Healthy relationship prevent mental illness.
Yeah.
So things that we can do to prevent. And there are things that we can also do to support somebody who is going through mental illness.
Yeah.
There is medication that can help at some point in time if you're prescribed. Sometimes people do not want to take it because their colleagues will see them taking medication or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? If you have a thyroid problem, you don't have to take public medication when I'm sitting here. Hey, I have to take my thyroid tablet.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to take my antidepressant, hey, I've seen you, we went for camping, you've not taken your antidepressant, have you forgotten to take it?
Mm.
Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
We make
Mm-hmm.
it a little bit of, I bring some normalcy to it.
Yeah.
And what else can we do? There's so many psychological therapies, occupational therapies, so many art therapy, music therapy
Yeah.
that can help somebody to find their way to mental wellness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All on board. It
Yeah.
is not all. I will not say medication is the only treatment.
Yeah.
Medication is just a tiny part of the bigger treatment.
Yeah.
It is we being aware of the resources, but most importantly, prevention, early diagnosis, better prognosis.
Mm.
As we educate ourselves, we help somebody to find the help early, the better the outcome.
Mm. Something that sticks in my mind right now, just because this is what I'm working on as a discipleship evangelism pastor, like life groups,
Yeah.
right? Is like I think it was one of the easiest ways, like you said, to
Yes.
prevent
Yes.
mental health stuff,
Yes.
right? Is to get involved in a life group.
Exactly.
Right? Like we've got life groups right now that are going, it's like volleyball, knitting, walking groups,
Yep.
right? And it's not even just the physical ones. Like we've got like knitting group, right? We've got a support
Yep.
group for men. We've got
Yep.
a marriage group. So getting involved in a life group is such a positive step.
So much. So 2023, the Surgeon General of US, Vivek Murphy, did a study, went through the US communities to find what is the most pressing issue to resolve. That is where I got the loneliness data from.
Okay.
In UK, there's a minister of loneliness.
Wow.
In Japan, there's a minister of loneliness. It's costing them billions to the economy.
Wow.
US, I'll give them 10 years, they'll catch up
Yeah.
and get
Yeah.
a minister for loneliness or something
Yeah.
because It's causing our population. And if you look at Vivek Smythe's structure of how to resolve this loneliness epidemic,
Yeah.
he calls it the loneliness epidemic in America. In North America, Canada is the same.
Yeah.
One is start individual. You have to be intentional
Yep.
about creating relationship. And what a fine way to create relationship, like in the church. We have the templates for good relationship.
Yes.
Our religion calls us to care for each other.
Yes.
Our religion calls us to worship together. Our religion calls us to pray together. Our religion calls us to pray for somebody. Our religion calls us to look out for the vulnerable. Our religion calls us to seek justice, mercy.
Yeah.
So we have everything set up for us to succeed.
Yes. We have the recipe for
We have
holistic
the
health.
recipe.
Yeah.
So whereas the others are now looking at it and looking for data, I was looking at the blue zones. Do you know the blue zones are not just in Loma Linda?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is not only good food
Yes.
that gives you good health.
Yeah.
If people can eat cheese and wine
Yeah.
and all stuff to get and still live to a long life, we should know healthy relationship. There's a study done in Harvard, I think it's Robert Waldinger that presented, that one of the factors to happy, longer life is healthy relationship. And we can find that in church.
Yes.
We can cultivate that in church because we have the template,
Yeah.
the Acts church.
Yes. Yes.
I'm excited about the Acts church.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we're learning now.
Yeah.
They shared everything together.
Yeah.
They had that is it. We have
Yeah.
the recipe. The church, the world is now finding it.
Yeah. Yeah. As you're saying that, I'm thinking about how do these people in the early church have the resilience to go through the persecution, through the gladiatorial trials, through like all these things that really pushed them. I think a big component was the church community that they had
As a
built, that
community.
strengthened, that encouraged,
Yes.
that nurtured and grew them.
Yeah. A lot of people in the world will quote Ubuntu, a concept.
Yes.
And I was talking to a church member who was, I asked Victor
Yeah.
to explain what Ubuntu is. He said Ubuntu is not a word.
Yeah.
It's a theme, it's a term. I don't know how to explain it.
Uh-huh.
But for us, I'll paraphrase this. I exist because we are existing. We have each other's back.
Yeah.
If you look at communities that have thrived through persecution, through anything that they've gone through some difficult time, it's because they had each other.
Wow.
And the good thing is, Christ has given us everything we need
Yeah.
to thrive.
Yeah.
Our mental wellness is secured in Him.
Yeah.
Because if I love you like Christ wants us to love each other,
Yeah.
there will be forgiveness.
Yes.
Because being together is not easy.
No. No.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
Family is not easy.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
But it's hard work, but the Lord Christ has given us all the recipes we need to make it work.
Yeah.
Even when we don't speak the same language, like the Acts church,
Yeah.
they work together.
Yeah.
They pray together. They sang together. They journey together. You flock him, he's coming back. He's still giving you a good word.
Yes.
That is what it means for us to have good health, mental health.
Yeah.
We have the template. We've got the tools. It's
Amen.
just up to us to use it.
Amen.
Amen.
That's it, man. That's it. Yeah, I think, as we kind of close out today's episode, I think an encouragement that I hope you take away from this is that you are meant to do life in community.
Yes.
And one of the greatest communities you can be a part of is the church community. It's not perfect by any means, right? It won't immunize you from mental health issues. But having a community can prevent a mental health crisis.
Amen.
That can catch the things beforehand, that can help with the preventative measures, that can be the support system when inevitably we do face something that's difficult.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Kofi, for
Thank you so much.
talking with us this
Thank
episode.
you.
And we've got a few more to record and to show. So stay tuned for the next one coming up. We'll be talking a little bit about epigenetics,
Yes.
right? And about trauma and trauma states and kind of how that passes on. So that'll be an interesting conversation. So you don't want to miss that one. But thanks so much for the conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Hey, we want to thank you for tuning in to the CIV podcast, where we get to explore different stories and topics related to faith and spirituality. As you consider how you give this year, we want to encourage you to give to discipleship and evangelism. That not only helps us with our podcast, but it also helps us with all the amazing things that we're doing here at CIV, like the workshops, the trainings, the classes, and the programs that are aiming at creating holistic, healthy disciples who make disciples. Thank you so much for supporting our ministries here at CIV. And as always, don't forget to love God, love people, and serve the world.